Hi, y'all. I'm very excited today because I am here with my friend Ihssane Zouikr, and we are in his shop, and this is an in-person video, which has not happened before with our virus project series. So Ihssane is a neuroscientist, and he also runs this beautiful craft shop on Beaumont Street. This is Koutchi, which means coach in Arabic with a Moroccan dialect. So I've been learning all about his culture and his background today, and I am so happy to share it with the audience. Also, thank you, Ihssane, for closing your shop a little bit early today to talk to me. I appreciate that.
Pleasure.
Before we talk too much about the virus, I'll just get you to tell me a little bit about who you are and what brought you to Newcastle.
Yeah, so I'm Ihssane. So I was born in Marrakesh in Morocco. And it's in the south of Morocco, kind of. And at the age of 18, I went and continued my undergrad and master degree in France initially. So I stayed there for 7 years, and then I was very interested back then in neuroscience, brain science. And later on, there was this new field coming around 2009, how the immune system communicate with the brain.
Oh wow!
It's called neuroimmunology, and I was really interested in that. And Australia, because I love the weather, although it's too far. I was interested in going to England, but it was cold and things like that. So I said no, I want Australia with the Anglo-Saxon country as well. And so I went and Googled neuroimmunology research, and then came the name of my previous supervisor, Deborah Hodgson, in Newcastle. So
oh wow!
Yeah, that's how I end up here as a PhD student in neuroimmunology.
Right.
And how the immune system communicate with the brain to modulate pain.
To modulate pain.
Pain sensitivity, yes.
Wow, fascinating. And can you just because what does neuroscience actually mean? Like, that is a field of the brain. Does it mean studying how the brain works, I guess? Like, what
it's
is
the science, absolutely. So neuro is a reference to neuron, which is the cell entity of the brain. So if we look on your brain morphologically and we look at the composition of it, you will see some cells with extensions and branchings like a tree.
Yep.
And with a nucleus and all of that, and that's the functional entity of the brain.
Right.
We call it neuron, hence neuro. And then science is science of the neuron, so neuroscience, or sometimes called neural sciences.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that is very very micro, I guess. Like, that is very
specific field. Yes.
Yeah.
It is the big field will be life science.
Okay.
Or medical science or biological sciences.
Cool.
And then you get into some specialization. Within biological sciences, you have different field, and one of the fields is neuroscience or neurosciences.
And so you did your PhD there. I understood you also lived in Paris for a while studying it?
Yes, I did. I lived in Paris, in Amiens, which is north as well. And I actually did pharmacy before because of the pressure of the family. They wanted me to be a pharmacist. So.
Right.
But in France, they have a very interesting quotation about the people who are coming first. And it's only 3%. And among those 3% is also a quotation whether you are an immigrant or not. So I didn't end up getting in. And I changed into biological sciences, got a bachelor there. And then moved all the way east with the border of Germany, Strasbourg.
Okay. Yeah.
And I did masters in neuroscience.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so my interest in biology comes very early on from observation and loving everything living.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's the science of life.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
It is, and I'm so curious. And we'll come back to your background because I think it's relevant to everything that's happening in the world at the moment. But and so you have quite an academic background,
Yes.
and here we are in your shop looking at your rugs and your ottomans, and I'm wearing your shoes. So what? And this shop is only happened earlier this year. Is that right? So what?
About 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's just, you decided to, I guess diversify. They say in 2020 and even before, it's good to have your hands in many pies.
Absolutely. There's a very interesting story into that, and we have the luxury now to go into details about that. So this is the story. This is how it happened. I was hearing after my PhD, there was a supervisor. It was around 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So before the submission of my PhD, we had a dinner as academics do,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a previous principal investigator. He was under the supervision of my previous supervisors as well, so the same network.
Okay.
And he offered me a postdoc. So postdoctoral study is what you do after
Right.
your PhD. And of course, I said yes because it's a great opportunity.
Sure.
And we worked on the stroke. So he was interested into stroke, and we had an animal model on that in Hunter Medical Research Institute behind John Hunter Hospital.
Yep. Okay.
And so after 1 year, I published 2 papers with him within that 1 year, and I wrote a grant, and it got awarded from Australian Academy of Science, and it was I was interested in getting to work with the best in the field, and one of them was Tomomi Shimogori in Japan.
Okay.
So and the field was how early life events, particularly stress, shape your neurons, the one that I mentioned before, your brain circuits and things like that. So we got awarded for that, and then I went there for 2 years.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Japan. You also lived. You have France and Japan.
Yeah, it's a lovely country.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was very stimulating intellectually.
Sure.
We were doing some fantastic work as well. We can go into that later on if you want. But then in academia, you have to work very hard, of course. You need to be very smart. There's a lot of pressure about publishing good quality in order to gain grants all the time, and that constant pressure and all of that. So you have to deliver always. But with the arrival of Aaron, my second child, then somehow, and maybe in mid-30s, we had this crisis.
I'm almost there.
Existential crisis, and you think, okay, what's important for you in life?
Yeah.
For me, it was very important not to miss out, because obviously I spent a lot of time trying to understand the impact of early life events in shaping who we are as adults. And the environment that you keep for kids is very important for them, obviously, and I didn't want to miss out on that. So I was actually, when I was in Japan, I was awarded another fellowship from RIKEN, the institute, where I was a very competitive one. But it came to a decision, very difficult decision, to give up that, decline it, and come back to Newcastle. So one of the cause was that my wife, Bonnie, she's a clinical psychologist, and if we went there, stayed there, she couldn't do the work.
Right.
So she would lose her license to practice. So we came to a family decision. It was in the interest of the family and the well-being, my health, well-being, and everything, to come back and start all over. When we came back, she worked easily, but I got stuck because, as I said, it's hard to find a faculty position. Right. Even with a PhD, I published 14 papers as well. So, so what do you do? Like, you get stuck. It's actually in our audiences who have a PhD and who are academics, they can understand this. I think it's a true.
I know. I
the market is very saturated
and competitive, and I think I've heard so many things about just having. I've considered going. I have my bachelor's of arts in creative writing, so I have sometimes thought about going beyond that. But I do think there are lots of benefits, of course. But there's so many highs and lows and things like that.
To give you an example, within the institute where I was, we were 13 postdoctoral fellow, and 11 of those left academia. So because they couldn't find the secure positions, because they have family, they need to find, they need to plan ahead. You can't just rely on fellowships year after year. And unfortunately, the academic institution didn't do that very well. So we're producing so many PhDs and very little opportunities out there. So what we do, outside academia, you can be science communicator, as what you're doing beautifully, or media or writer or whatever.
Sure.
But you have to have that industry experience.
Yeah.
At least first year before landing a job. So I applied for a couple of positions, but nothing came up. Then you have to survive. You have to reinvent yourself. So, okay, what else I can do? All right, I am Moroccan, and I get into this brainstorming. Yeah. I have this value. Okay, I know artisans back in Morocco.
Yeah.
And then I start talking to my brother. And we introduced this Moroccan artisan.
Yeah, you have a lot of family and connections there, and we'll talk about that more. So Absolutely. It was quite easy, not easy, but you had the beginnings that you were able to just reconnect with people and kind of,
in that regard, because I don't want to get the audience the wrong messages. So do your PhDs. If you have to do a PhD, it's a fantastic experience. It's challenging. It teaches you a lot of transferable skills that you can apply. You are constantly hitting problems. All the time, like every day, and what we learned during your PhD is how we can solve those problems using innovative approaches. And sometimes you have to think outside the box, and that's actually that was in me. And then I just said, okay, well, you have to adapt. It's all a matter of adaptation, I guess.
Yes, and I'm sure your neuroscience background might have a bit more information around that as well. But let's talk. So you've kind of taken us from your birth to where we are now and the ups and downs along the way. You decided to open a shop in an interesting time as the pandemic has hit. Tell me about how it's affected you personally and professionally, like
the pandemic. Yeah. So of course, my background in neuroscience, I had to rebuild that background in business. So I did an intensive course in Nice program, 6 weeks. And during those interviews and during these lessons, there was something that come up again, which is you have to take golden opportunities during time of crisis.
Right.
And that just stayed in my mind.
Okay. And, interesting.
Yeah, and what you get is like maybe you can negotiate a better price for the rent and things like that. So that's what I did, so at the personal level, I was able to take that opportunity. It's even more personal than that. With the pandemic, what happens is we could get the job keeper as a business owner. And I'm Australian citizen, and I was eligible for that. That was great help because you could invest more in bringing the goods and pay the rent on time and all of that. So
and I'll just say for anyone who is watching that may not be familiar with Australia's policy, Australia basically, once the pandemic hit, organized financial assistance to any Australian citizen or resident that had. It was business owners. I think it's also people like working in hospitality and stuff like that. You just had to show how much money you were making the same time last year, and then they would give you a bit of a supplement.
You needed to show a decline of 30%. Compared to the same period last year. And so I was eligible for that.
That's great. So that was something that you qualified for, but also it sounds like it was a kind of a opportunity you kind of went for. You know, it was like almost the stars kind of aligned, right? Like
yes. The other crazy thing I did, and please don't do it, is I applied for a superannuation release. We could do that as well. So I got $9,500 dollars, and I injected it into my own investment.
Right, so that's something else that I don't think that because some of my viewers that might be in the United States, superannuation, I guess, might be a comparison, might be, I guess, your 401k, but most Australian businesses, when they pay their employees, or even if you're an entrepreneur, it is advisable to put a certain amount of money into. It's basically like long-term savings, a retirement one. But it's very interesting because when I lived in the United States, there was I guess they took Social Security out of your taxes to a degree, but it's a slightly different format, and I feel like Australia's got it better under control than the US does. But look into superannuation and what it means. But one thing that happened when the pandemic hit was that usually people are not allowed to touch their superannuation no matter what.
Until you are 65 years of age.
But this time you were able to access it early.
Access it early, and
yeah.
so I accessed it early, and I injected that into my own investment rather than let it there. And the return is not as great as you would have from your own investment.
Sure.
So that's how it affected me positively.
Right.
At the personal level, I love traveling. So I travel very frequently to Morocco to see my family because all my family are there. I travel to Japan to train Aikido, so I have my master is over there, so I train frequently.
Your Aikido master is in Japan. All right, interesting. Okay.
So, and with the borders closed, that we couldn't do that, unfortunately. So that's some kind of negative impact.
Yeah. And did your wife have to work from home sometimes?
No, she's in the health sector.
Oh, right. So
she's working full time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not from home. Yeah.
Right.
She was required.
Right. Now you just mentioned how you travel to Morocco a lot. You have a lot of friends and family still there. How has the pandemic and COVID-19 affected the people of Morocco? Have they been slammed as bad as some other African countries?
Yeah, it was very bad. I mean, let's talk about the good things first.
Okay,
The government, what it did, it actually converted a lot of industrial sector into making like masks. And they make it very affordable for people. So from the very early first wave, Moroccans could reach a mask very easily. It wasn't the case in France when I was actually following the news.
Yeah.
They had a penury in masks. Gels and all of those PPE were available with a very cheap price, affordable price for the people. The bad thing is it hit it badly because it's such a social environment. So we like to do things in groups and family and all of that, and the numbers were not very good. Recently, about every day is about 40 deaths. And maybe 1,500 every day positive cases.
Right.
So compared to Australia, they haven't done. Done well in that regard.
Sure. Did they have, I guess, they have good healthcare in Morocco? What is is it a good healthcare system?
It is, yeah. A lot of people have their own social security. The other thing I forgot to mention is obviously in my business, this had a bad impact because the artisans were closed. They weren't allowed to go to do their workshop.
Right.
And they don't have any salary. So one thing we were making sure to do is still contribute to that to their daily life by at least a little bit of support. And getting them to do some orders and paying them while still in pandemic. Some of our artisans were still working from home.
Okay, sure.
And
so things shut down there.
Because usually they are very good. I mean, it's not like other countries like Bangladesh and India and things like that. Moroccan artisanal craft is famous around the world. They export around the world to US actually, Europe. And the artisans are actually sometimes doing better than us. So during the pandemic they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, sure. And you don't reckon so they didn't have a similar JobKeeper type thing? The Moroccan government was maybe not
it was similar, but in a sense that the amount was ridiculous, like maybe 1,000 Moroccan dirhams, which is 100 euros a month.
Not much.
So that's not much.
Yeah. So that's lovely that you were able to kind of use some of the ways that the Australian government benefited you to help them keep them going.
And at the same time, you're actually helping the Australian economy.
Yeah, exactly. You're still kind of keeping things going and starting keeping a shop going on a very popular street, and you have lots of things that are actually here. And
that's right.
So yes, and someone's cool. Yeah. Were there, I've kind of asked everyone this question. I feel like I've interviewed many different people who have dealt with protests in their country. I know Australia has had a few different protests. America has had heaps of protests. Were there protests in Morocco that you know of at all?
No, not that I know. No. I think they were kind of compliant.
Do you think that they'd have anything before, like a pandemic, worries of a pandemic before?
No, I mean, Morocco is an interesting country in a sense that it is politically stable.
Yeah, yeah.
So people generally are happy with the system. So we have a kingdom. And
It's not a democracy.
Kind of democracy, kind of the kingdom. It's very funny because they use the British system. So we have a prime, kind of a prime minister or minister of the ministers.
Okay.
So we have a parliament, but at the same time, everything is under control by obviously by the king. Yeah. So but people are mostly happy with their system because you can still afford rent, you can still afford to eat well, and all those basic needs that revolution usually starts from. Yeah, the bread. If you can afford the bread, you are
so you
stable.
can afford bread in Morocco.
Yes.
Right. No, that's so interesting. So there's a king and a prime minister. So in the UK, for example, there's the Queen and Boris Johnson.
That's right.
But I feel that Boris Johnson has more power than the Queen.
Oh,
would you say?
No, in reality, the kingdom is still powerful.
Really?
Yes.
Like similar to maybe Saudi Arabia, or I know that they have they're an oligarchy kind of. Yeah.
We're not as conservative as them, but we're very open-minded.
Yeah. You find Morocco's a pretty open-minded country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because of that influence, because of the geographical positioning, close to Europe, and because of the historical influence of coming from these countries like France, Spain, early on the Romans and all of that. So it's a mixture of events that allow that flexibility and that openness to the world.
Right. I would love to go, and I haven't been to Spain either. I would love to go to Spain and Morocco. And I've heard so much about it. And Sophie, our mutual friend, went there last year and had all these amazing, colorful photos.
So much color, so much history, a lot of rich flavors, and I can assure you're gonna stimulate all your five senses.
Yeah. Oh, just whenever I know we can't go back anytime soon. And I guess we've all been affected by the virus in different ways. I know a few people personally who have had it. Have you met anyone? Do you know anyone who's had it?
We had neighbors in Morocco that actually died from it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, but the family was quite aware of it, and I was kind of giving them time to time advices about some main thing.
Okay.
Wash your hands, keep the distance, and all
that.
I asked my mom to not accept any visitors right from March. So the only one that can be is like close family, and even those they are social distancing and all of that. So. Right.
Do you think that there would be any drama in the United States? The masks have become completely politicized. Is there anything? Do you think that? Does it seem like people are quite okay with the...
There are certain people, but it's not turning into a movement.
Right,
You will always find some, how do you call them again, complotist or, people that don't believe that the virus
conspiracy theorists?
Yes,
Yeah.
Conspirationists. But it's not turning into a movement in Morocco. Science is still big, research. Actually, China is doing one of the clinical trial in collaboration with Moroccan researchers at the moment.
Right.
So that's one of the leading clinical trial in the world.
Yeah.
So people still believe in science and in data as well, data-driven policy.
Right.
Even the government, there is a good communication between public policies and scientists.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you don't think there's a huge amount of doubt around it, that people kind of overall accept that it's a real thing and it's just something that they kind of have to deal with. From a neuroscientific perspective, and I basically know as much as what you've just told me about neuroscience, but what is your I'm happy for you to comment on this however you like. So maybe it's about how the world will be different, or you mentioned like young ages. Like, do you think children of a pandemic that have spent a lot of time at home or learning from home, is that going to be positive or negative? Yeah. What would you say as a neuroscientist?
In terms of isolation,
yeah,
I can comment on that. The work I've done in Japan was an animal model of maternal separation. So some of the moms work in humans, they work a lot and they are separated from their mothers.
Right.
It started
from their children.
From their children.
Right,
So
right,
it started early on in the US in the 40s, and there were some infants that were neglected at the hospital, and they were allowed to have their mothers visited only once a month. And when you follow these kids, they had like weight loss.
Right.
And they follow them into adulthood. They have cognitive deficit. They didn't perform well educationally. They have increased susceptibility to anxiety. So I was doing an animal model of that, maternal separation. You separate the pups, the small mice from their mothers, 3 hours every day for 8 days, for their first 8 days of life.
Yeah.
And what happened is that's a very powerful tool to stress them out.
Right.
And when you follow them also later on, you've got some behavioral alteration. Increased anxieties is one of them, susceptibility to development of psychopathological disorders.
Right.
And that's actually can be explained by morphological changes at the brain level, at the cellular level, that are driving those behavioral changes. And this is these data are also confirmed by clinical finding.
Okay.
So, having said that, during the pandemic, we could still find people together with their parents.
Yeah.
And so as long as the parents are there.
Do you think it could be even a positive thing?
Yeah.
Like if they're actually, if they're not going crazy, like
we are reevaluating things and putting things into order and priorities that.
Right. Well,
we need to spend time with the kids and things like that. So I think it's a good thing. Now, in terms of the virus itself, it's not something new that we have. In the past, we have had pandemics, we have had viruses as well. And I believe, from my scientific point of view, we are equipped to deal with such thing. In fact, the data show that just above 80% of people that have the virus are asymptomatic, which means like they don't develop symptoms, fever or like all those COVID-19 symptoms. What does that shows is the immune system responded in a good way. Unfortunately, tiny bit of people that have died, when you see their historical file, they have already suffered from prior medical histories, so
I think it's interesting because, for example, like a country like the United States, which is known for not looking like terrible healthcare system and a lot of unhealthy
very
people.
Costly too.
So perhaps in some countries where people like have a great healthcare system, and also maybe there's fewer things that might make it worse, I guess, you know what I mean, then it might be easier to manage and fewer people might die. I guess. You have to do the right thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we still don't understand much about this virus. Actually, one of the recent data show that it can have bad effect on the brain, on the heart. So it is a serious virus. Provided we do the right thing, we wash hands and social distancing and all of that. But from that to push, let's say, vaccination, which is compulsory to everyone, probably will be infringement at the personal freedom. That's what I believe. But we can vaccinate the elderly and vulnerable. That's fine. But don't push it to everyone. Well, and are you concerned? So I've been pretty ambivalent about the vaccine, other than I'll probably take it if it means I can travel. But
and I'm not anti-vax.
No. I don't. And I'm not. I'm just curious and interested about it. But then one of my friends who also works in science, she was just saying she would probably prefer to take it after it had been around for a few years, so that because maybe
we know about the negative effect.
So are you nervous about the idea of a rushed vaccine? Is that something that alarms you a little bit?
Yes, usually it will take a couple of years to make a good one.
Right.
But again, can we talk about like the financial pressures that these big pharma are doing and all of that? So it's hard to tell. Sometimes you have to not be naive. This is all also financially driven. One of the controversy in France was a professor that developed chloroquine, which is just a chemical that was known for anti-paludism, anti-malaria.
Right.
And he did some clinical trial, although very critical because he didn't include a control group. So a control group in science is something you are comparing to. They didn't have the treatment.
Right.
in his samples there were only people that had the treatment,
Right.
so he didn't have a. So we can
Sure.
criticize that,
Yeah.
but his comment was that in time of crisis and pandemic, we have to rush things. We don't have the luxury to have a control group.
Right.
Basically.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it actually was effective in
Yeah.
treating a number of. But I think because it's just a chemical, it's
Yeah.
very cheap. You can get that.
This is the
easily.
malaria one. Yeah.
You can get that easily. It
Uh-huh.
has the FDA approved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's ready to use, but
Yeah.
then he was very heavily criticized. Now,
I'm so conflicted about that, and I don't, I just think it would be good to have things that work, but I'm afraid that specific one, particularly in the United States, has become politicized as well. Because is that chloroquine, is that the same as hydrochloroquine?
Yes,
It's the same thing, hydroxychloroquine.
Chloroquine, yeah.
Right, it's become a very partisan, polarized debate, and I'm almost like hesitant to even talk about them in the interviews because I've definitely talked to some people in earlier interviews that have been so dismissive of it, and I know that they're coming up with our current president in the United States has the virus as we speak. Remdesivir is what they've been deciding on, but also part of me thinks, well, if this hydroxychloroquine is effective and it's available and cheap, and
why can't we use it?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you really care about the health of the people, you have to get the scientists to use that. And he didn't. The professor I was referring to, he didn't prevent them from running clinical trial.
Yeah.
So big pharma could always come, get that chemical, run clinical trials, and get the results earlier than development of the vaccination.
Right.
But that's just.
Because one of the things along with vaccination is the idea that we can come up with better treatment methods, so it's not as terrifying, right? That we can stop it earlier on, rather than it getting to the case where you need a ventilator or something like that.
But in Australia, when you see now, it's kind of getting to normal situation. Basically. In Newcastle, we haven't had any positive case for the last 9 weeks or so. So
we've been very lucky, and I don't know why we have done so well and other places have done. I think the border, like not letting people in, like
isolation as well. They're so far from everywhere else.
Yeah.
I think.
But it is frustrating. Like if my gran just passed away earlier a week ago, and I would have loved to have gone home. And if it weren't for this, I would have been home within 24 hours. I would have booked my flight home to be with my family. But I think as an American citizen, I could have gone home. But I don't think that I could have come back here where my partner and my life and my work is. It might have taken months and months and months to get into and it's probably the same. Since you're a Moroccan citizen, I think you could probably go home if you had to.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
But to come back is the hard thing.
Be hard. It's the borders in Morocco are still closed.
Okay, right, all right. Yeah. So you couldn't go home to Morocco if you wanted to right now.
Yeah, you can't.
Really? Even as a Moroccan citizen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. But you are able to get
all the goods.
Yeah, the goods can still good. That's cool.
Cool. It's still going, and we're doing this through FedEx, so it's all good.
Right.
We can
right.
Get things
Has it slowed things down at all? I think sometimes.
It's taking different paths, which means the goods take much longer to come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they want to use all these parts of the world and get one shipment.
Right.
It's not very practical for us.
Right.
But it's okay.
But they're coming in. They're coming in. Yeah. Is there either do you want to talk about any positive things that have happened despite the strangeness of this year? Any silver linings?
I think there are a lot of things that are positive, to be honest, because this project was just in my mind initially, and I was so lucky to work with such good people, and I have big. This shop was designed by Odile, my friend.
Okay.
And I used my time in France.
Okay.
So Odile is living in Bretagne, which is like north west of France.
Okay.
And she's the interior designer.
Oh, cool.
A very passionate lady, and I wanted to pay her, but she didn't accept me to pay.
Sure.
So it's just brought all these memories and that experience, prior experience, into a real project.
Yeah.
Samantha, one of my friends, also helped me do the painting.
Right.
One of my connections is through musicians, Beriesh, and his friend is Robert.
Okay.
So I really thank these guys. He did all these wood from
right.
So the shelves,
So,
the rack, all of that. So handcrafted by Robert.
do you think that even people had more time, or people were more generous because, like in the time of the pandemic, sort of? Do you think that maybe people have been more generous than?
Yes. Yes. I mean, for professional levels like this, you still have to pay them and everything.
Yeah.
But I think you just have to believe in yourself and just do it.
Yeah.
There are two categories of people, basically, generally. I'm not generalizing.
Yeah.
The thinkers and the doers.
Right. Right. I've heard that before.
Yeah. Sometimes you overthink something and you are scared. Should I really go into this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so proud that I could see this as happening. Of course, we're not doing as great as, in times of non-pandemic, but everything takes time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, you have done it. And I want the people that are listening to believe in themselves, believe in your project, and just do it. Don't listen too much to
the noise.
Yes, to the noise around you. So just have.
How long did it take? So you opened 6 weeks ago, but when did you first get the idea?
In the making, I would say maybe 2 years.
Okay, right.
And start doing some market research and some business plan and all of that. Start with the market.
Yeah.
Test the idea whether it works. Establish your network of artisans and deal with all those logistics behind how you can bring things here and
So you've been planning it for a long time, but do you think do you think that you always knew that 2020 would be the year that it would happen, or was so it was kind of just like
who wants to invest in this year? Like we had the drought, the fires, now the pandemic. You have to be crazy, but I am a little bit crazy.
That's good.
It has to be the year, so there are a lot of things positives, and you just we need a little bit of positive in our life, so.
And a little bit of culture and color as well too, and optimism.
Actually, that's a very interesting thing too, because one thing I want is actually create that awareness of the other. We have to respect the other, regardless of their ethnic identity or origin.
And Newcastle has not traditionally been the most multicultural city in all Australia in the past.
No, and it's getting better. It's getting much better. Beaumont Street is very multicultural.
It is.
And I'm really kind of nice. It's nice to add another identity here, and Moroccans are very rare species here, so it's good.
It's good.
It's a good addition.
Good. Yes. Well, Ihssane, I have learned a lot about Morocco. I've learned a lot about neuroscience. I've just from getting to know you, I've learned a lot about Arabic with a Moroccan dialect and the crafts and the people you work with. So I will include the links to all of these different things in the article when we publish it. Also, thank you to our videographer, Joshua Bruce, in the background, who's not going to be on camera, but it has been such a special afternoon.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us.
Thanks, Alex, for doing this. Amazing. Thank you.